know how long the saga has been going on?
Well, it's been 28 years since my aunt died, and I spent the first 20 years after that negotiating with the two executors that she'd appointed to try and reach a resolution, because there were so many strange things which had appeared in the will. And then we got nowhere with that, so I had to take it to court. I was left with no option but to take it to court. And that's taken 8 years now. We've been in court on one of the cases for 8 years. That's to do with the interpretation of the will. And there's another case I started about a year ago about the shares in Allied newspapers. That's been going on for about a year now.
What are you asking from the courts?
I'm asking for 3 things altogether. The first, which to me is perhaps the most important, is for them to order the release of all my aunt's legal files, administration files and family papers, which have been taken by the executors and others. And they belong to me, but they've been taken away. So that doesn't make anything very fair in the courts. The second thing I'm asking for is a fair interpretation of my aunt's will, because they've interpreted it in a very one-sided way and basically given themselves a large part of the assets. There are a lot of ambiguities there, but obviously they've interpreted in the way that suits them. The third thing I'm after is the return of the majority shareholding in our newspapers, not to me, but back to the estate, whilst we have a discussion about where they should go. Because, once again, it's an illegal or improper transfer, I should say, that took place back in 2010 when they suddenly decided to give the shares to the foundation. The timing of it was also interesting because it was precisely 2 weeks after I'd filed my first court case against them. So those are the 3 things I'm after.
So, what is the issue regarding the villa in Hallia?
Well, the villa where we're sitting at the moment is designated in the will as for myself and my family to live in. There's no question of cohabitation with the foundation, but nominally in the will it said that the foundation was to have its seat here, the Strickland Foundation, which was also set up at the same time. There's also provision, very clear provision in the will, that the Strickland Foundation can move their seat to anywhere else in Malta that they choose, but they've chosen not to do that. So they've chosen to be at loggerheads with us, which is a pity. As regards the other issues, it's more to do with the fact that the executors, even before they were appointed to their positions or confirmed by the courts in their positions, gave possession of the villa to the Strickland Foundation without first agreeing anything with the heir. And they didn't know what the villa consisted of, so they just took everything that they could lay their hands on. So we haven't agreed the limits of the villa, what the villa consists of, and we haven't agreed the rights of use and habitation that we are supposed to have here. So there are 2 rather fundamental issues which have not been addressed, quite apart from who owns the contents and things like that.
So just to confirm, Mabel Strickland was clear on who is her heir, in the sense that when it came to Strickland Foundation to, filtering in about this villa, you weren't informed that the villa, they wanted it to establish it as their headquarters?
I wasn't aware of the changed will at all until after my aunt died, so I was a bit surprised when I discovered that some rather key, well, most of the assets actually ended up in the hands of the foundation, and that I wasn't included in the foundation. I understood why I couldn't be included in the foundation initially, but that obviously got changed later on. So
what is the relation with the Strickland Foundation?
Well, not particularly good, because the council of the foundation has been responsible for a sustained campaign of harassment against us in our own home. You may have noticed the CCTV cameras above us. We've had CCTV cameras watching us in every room in the house except for our bedroom and the bathroom. Mabel set up the Strickland Foundation for herself and her heirs in perpetuity, and specifically made a provision that the seat of the foundation be relocated to any other place in Malta. But the administrators refused to do that. And that would obviously allow me and my family to live peacefully in our home, which they don't seem to want to allow us to do. She was very clear that she wanted me involved in her legacies from the beginning. And her intentions were very clearly set out in the 1976 letter, which I'm happy to show you. She never changed her mind about her heir. I was her heir from 1975 right through to her death, and when she died,
So,
she had a photograph of me, beside her bed, apparently. Anyway, but the foundation has been run in other ways. Instead of putting her heir into the foundation, the executors chose to put their own sons into the foundation. That's Mario De Marco and Max Ganardo, although Max Ganardo has since resigned.
so do you think that the Strickland Foundation for the past years has been hiding from you?
Well, they've certainly been hiding files, not just the Strickland Foundation, but the executors' families as well. They've been hiding all my aunt's legal files, all her administration files, all the family archive. I mean, there are 40 to 50 filing cabinets full of files which they've been hiding. Some of them are in a room behind this wall, but it's locked. I can't get in there. There are 4 rooms in this house which are locked, and I'm not allowed in there, short of breaking and entering. They've removed about 21, 22 filing cabinets full of papers to another building altogether, also in Lear, but they've taken them out of the villa. And these are papers which belong to me as her heir. They're family papers. They're nothing to do with the foundation. They're family papers they don't want me to see.
You mentioned these documents. This week in court, we discovered that there is the existence of these files. It was said by Mario De Marco, Guido De Marco's son, but my question is, how come these files are in the hands of Mario De Marco and Ganado and not yours?
It's a very good question. They took them. Max Ganado's father was the executor and looked after all the executors' files. When he died, those files should have been passed to me as the next executor, or the person put in to finish the executive job. He refuses to pass them over. He has spent a year redacting them and pulling out little bits and pieces which he's prepared to pass on, but the files themselves he won't pass over. I've seen them, but he won't give them to me.
You saw them?
I've seen them in his office. He showed them to me in his office.
But did you read them?
No. But he pointed them out to me.
That's it. You just had a glance of them?
Yes. The Mario De Marco is saying that his mother has the files, not him, which I don't think is very generous of Mario, but, his mother is the heir of Guido, apparently. But either way, it's not their files. Those files belong to me as Mabel's heir. They're family files. Guido De Marco was the legal advisor of my aunt, so it's quite right that he would have copies of these files, but he also has the originals, because Mabel at that time was not in good health, and so all the files were kept at his offices.
In court, Ganado said that he's willing to publish documents under court's orders. However, De Marco disagreed. Why do you think De Marco took this stance? What do you think about it?
Well, I'm not entirely surprised at Mario's stance, because that's been his stance all the way along. I think Max Ganardo is being a little bit disingenuous, because he has had the opportunity to pass the executors' files over for over a year now, and he's refused to do so. Mario DeMarco has always been fighting any disclosure. I guess that he must know what's in the files and be embarrassed by it. He must realise he's got something to lose there.
I guess that you weren't really surprised about what DeMarco said.
I wasn't surprised. No, I've had dealings with him over the last year, and that has been his attitude all along.
What value are we talking about when we speak about the Strickland Foundation and Mabel Strickland's will? I mean, there were reports there's an estimate of 55 million.
Possibly, but I've never tried to calculate it because they're not assets that are coming to me. And all I want is that...
Where these assets
I know what the assets are. I've never tried to value them because it's not relevant. What I was aware of is the valuation when Mabel died, which was an awfully long time ago, and of course they were worth nothing like that then. But I am aware that the Strickland Foundation have received something like €3.5 million from Allied newspapers in improper dividends when they weren't even a shareholder. Now, I find that extraordinary. So that's perhaps one reason why they're hiding files. And I think that's very, very sinister.
So, what about it from these 3.5 million came from?
That was supposedly dividends from Allied, which should have been paid to the estate.
What's the way forward?
I'm sorry?
What's the way forward?
Oh, the way forward? Well, the only way forward to get a fair and honest settlement is to first release all of my family's files. Only then will we actually find out what my aunt really wanted and get to the truth. I mean, if we are interested in truth and not obfuscation, then that's got to be the way forward. And then the courts can decide what's fair once we know what the truth is, what our wishes were.
For the past years, have you received some sort of threats or provocation?
Provocations continuously from the Strickland Foundation. I could give you examples all over the place, but I won't. But it's all documented and very unpleasant. And yes, we've even had a threatening letter from Mario DeMarco on government-headed paper when he was a minister. So that's unpleasant as well. But all we're trying to do is to live in peace in the villa and enjoy what is supposed to be my legitimate rights.